Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'm here with a replay of round 1 of a Modern League. Note, I didn't say friendly Modern League or competitive Modern League. Now we just have one type of league. It's called a Modern League. The old friendlies used to cost 8 tickets. The old competitive leagues used to cost 12 tickets, and they just averaged everything, and now it costs 10 tickets to play these Modern Leagues, which I think is actually pretty great. It puts everybody in the same pool. And in the past, I might have been a little bit lazy and just enter like a friendly tournament rather than pushing myself to play against the best possible competition. Now everybody just has to play in the same pool, and I think that's actually pretty great. So this is round 1, and let's have a look at the opening hand. I won the die roll, playing against an opponent named Zarasim. And yeah, this is a pretty beautiful hand. If they've got some broken stuff going on, we can counter it on turn 1 with Force of Negation. We've got a 1-drop that we can play. Nice choices between Spreading Seas and Silvergill Adept on turn 2 if we draw into a Merfolk. So easy keep for me. And yeah, we can go ahead and tap out for Benthic Biomancer and still have Force of Negation up on the opponent's turn. So Polluted Delta cracked, opponent goes to 19, 17, and we see Fairy Seer. All right, so another Modern Horizons card making a splash in Modern. This guy is a 1/1 flyer that lets you scry 2 when he enters the battlefield. So opponent is going to scry 2. All right, for my turn, I drew another Silvergill Adept, which is excellent because I would prefer to play a creature rather than playing out Spreading Seas. First, though, I think the best choice is to get in with Benthic Biomancer. If the opponent blocks, of course, I can adapt, but I expect that they won't block. And second main phase, I can play a Silvergill Adept and reveal the other Silvergill Adept. Master of Waves is great. It's going to be a nice payoff as we continue to establish devotion. Still not quite sure what the opponent is doing here. They could be on fairies, but after playing a snow-covered forest, seems unlikely. Extra unlikely now that we see Tarmogoyf. So currently only a 1/2 with just a land in the graveyard. I have a feeling the opponent's probably going to crack in with this Fairy Seer here now. Tarmogoyf currently a 1/2, so not really going to keep us from attacking. Get in with both my guys. Again, if he wants to try to block Benthic Biomancer, it would be ill-advised since I could just adapt and kill the Tarmogoyf. Opponent doesn't block and is going to take 3. All right, so they go down to 13. And this is something worth noting about Ben, is that he lets you get in with these cheeky attacks, right? Whereas normally a 1/1 creature, a 1/1 Merfolk, would not be able to attack into a 1/2 Tarmogoyf. Ben does what he wants to do, right? Because he can become a 2/2 whenever. So he cracks in, they go to 13, I'm still sitting at 19, and it seems like playing out the next Silvergill, it's probably the best thing to do. The opponent looks like they're on a creature strategy as well. We're not expecting any, wraths, and with access to blue mana already, Spreading Seas didn't seem super useful or super necessary. Definitely not the most pressing thing for me to do. In fact, since I'm going to be able to have access to Island Walk already with this Watery Grave, Spreading Seas is looking like a good bit of fodder to potentially pitch to a Force of Negation. So there's that Lord, again, synergizing with the opponent's Watery Grave. Play our AEther Vial, which we drew, and opponent plays an island and goes to attacks. Chooses not to get in with Tarmogoyf. Interesting. This seems like it would represent that they don't have removal here, because if they attack him with Tarmogoyf and I block, they could like Fatal Push this Silvergill Adept. Now the Goyf would be a 2/3 and just eat the Silvergill Adept, 2 for 1-ing me. But they left him back. Let's see if that open mana does anything curious here. So Fairy Seer gets in, I take 1 more. And opponent just passes, not doing anything. AEther Vial is going to go to 1. Drew an island. That's pretty good. So clearly, a lot of choices here. But it looks like I decided to go with Master of Waves. As I mentioned, the opponent not attacking with Tarmogoyf made me think that they may not have removal. So maybe getting Master of Waves out now in that window would be the best choice. Another reason to run Master of Waves out now is that the AEther Vial will be up to 2 next turn, so we can get the Master of the Pearl Trident into play for free with AEther Vial. Okay, so Tarmogoyf, let's see, still a 1-2, but didn't want to risk attacking in. We've got a big attack next turn with Island Walk, so best not to risk Tarmogoyf getting randomly bigger here if the opponent plays like Opt or something, right? Assassin's Trophy on the Master of Waves makes it seem a little bit curious why the opponent didn't attack in last turn. Again, if they had the removal, they could have gotten a 2-for-1. I guess they were respecting my potential attacks, but any kind of big attack would involve an Island Walk Lord, and they can't block that anyway. So, poor play by the opponent, if I'm reading it correctly. I get to get a land, though, and Tarmogoyf is now a 3-4. So you can see with the first deck that we play against, the 2 main deck relics that I included in this list, already relevant in this matchup. Now, they could also play something like Snapcaster. We haven't really seen the whole deck. We really don't know what they're doing yet. So far, it just seems like Sultai good stuff, or semi-good stuff. I don't know if Fairy Seer qualifies as good stuff. All right, so they're doing something during the at the end of Declare blocks. Interesting. So, Mist Syndicate Naga. This is yet another Modern Horizons card. All of you Merfolk pilots know, much to our chagrin, they decided not to include any Merfolk at all, but rather print a bunch of random Snake Ninjas and Vidalcan Ninjas and other type of ninjas that nobody cares about. Except Zarasim, who is now ninjutsuing my face with Mist Syndicate Naga. For those of you guys unfamiliar with Mist Syndicate Naga, when he does damage to an opponent, you make a copy of him. So it's pretty sick because then you have 2, and if they hit, they make 4, and then if you have 4, they make 8. So things can get pretty wild with this card. So there's a copy of Mist Syndicate Naga, and the opponent still has an uncracked Polluted Delta. So ninjutsu, something that we haven't seen in Modern, really. Very occasionally, people are running Ninja of the Deep Hours, but didn't have enough really to work with to build a whole deck. So this was an interesting turn. Got a lot of power with the Lord and Island Walk. Could potentially also hold up Force of Negation. So the plan to me seems to be Vial in the Lord, activate Mutavault, and swing, leave up 3 for a hard cast Force of Negation on my turn. If the opponent doesn't have any removal, then I've still got free Force of Negation or Merfolk Trickster up on the opponent's turn. So Master of the Pearl Trident, let's get Mutavault in the mix. This looks like 11 damage. So opponent cracks a Polluted Delta, going down to 12. Now this is an interesting thing. If they have removal for the Lord, if Force of Negation were Force of Will, and I didn't have to pay mana to use it on my turn, I could potentially cast Force of Will, pitch Spreading Seas, leave my mana up to make Benthic Biomancer a 3/3, and then just finish the opponent off. However, I am going to have to use my mana, I think, to defend against this piece of removal. So, first use of Force of Negation in this league, and we're paying 3 mana for it, doing a good job against this extremely threatening Fatal Push. Note that it didn't go to the graveyard, it got exiled, so no Snapcaster action for that. And the opponent's going to go from 12 down to 1 here. And with a Lord on the table, they have to feel like they're in a pretty tight spot. So you're going to start off with Inquisition, nothing I can do about it. So they took the Merfolk Trickster, makes a lot of sense. We're going to see a Fairy Seer doing its scry thing. And then a follow-up with Assassin's Trophy. So I get to get a land, the Lord is gone, the opponent has a pretty nice board, but they are still at 1 life. So these Mist Syndicate Nagas are interesting because they never have to worry about being blockers since they make blockers. So opponent hits me for 6, they're going to make 2 more snakes. So this guy's not actually a snake, right? Naga is just like a type of snake species or something, snake being. AEther Vial is definitely going to stay on 2. We've got a redraw with Spreading Seas. We've got a redraw with Benthic Biomancer. Now we've got another redraw with Silvergill Adept. Let's start off by vialing in the Silvergill. So this is something I talked about in the deck tech is how much drawing power the deck has. Card drawing power. There's a Force of Negation, which is pretty nice. Let's go ahead and loot with Benthic Biomancer. We can actually draw into something better than Spreading Seas. That island looking pretty poor. Let's go ahead and draw a 3rd card. Actually, it's a 4th card for the turn. Take the opponent off of green. A Lord would still win it off the top here. We didn't get there, but it's a card that we can play and draw another card. So I think that we, once we cycle this Relic, we'll have effectively drawn 5 cards that turn. 1 off the Silvergill. Sorry, 1 for the turn, 1 off the Silvergill, 1 for Benthic Biomancer, 1 for the Spreading Seas, and then 1 for the Relic. Getting 5 cards deep in 1 turn. Not something Merfolk has always had access to. Now, with 4 blockers, clearly I don't have good attacks here. I have to pass to the opponent and see what they do. All right, so they're getting with all the Nagas because if any of them get through, they make blockers, which seems reasonable. I'm at 9. You know, it's not normal math because, you know, imagine I can just take this hit and then crack back and they don't have enough blockers. They're going to have blockers because of these ninjas. So I'm basically just looking to top deck a Lord here. So I need to not die. That's basically my math here. So I'm going to block a couple of the Nagas, I think. Actually, 3 of them. I've already gotten cards off of these Silvergills. I'm going to take 1 from the Fairy, 1 from the Naga. Oh, but it looks like the opponent has more. Fallen Shinobi. So this is another ninjutsu card. Let's go ahead and let it enter the battlefield so that we can read all of its text. All right, so for those of you who are not familiar with Fallen Shinobi, it is a 5-drop blue-black ninja. It's a zombie ninja. It costs 1 less to ninjutsu it. And when it deals damage, it's kind of amazing, actually. I would have to exile 2 cards from my library, and then until the end of the opponent's turn, they can play those cards without paying their mana cost. Now, play, actually, it's not cast, so if they flip lands and they haven't made their land drop for the turn, they can actually play a land from my deck. And then, of course, any card that they draw, or rather exile, they can play that without paying for it. So they're going to get some looks at the top of my deck with this hit from the Fallen Shinobi. Now, they bounced their little fairy guy, which they can replay next turn and continue scrying. So that's the synergy that they're going for with that Fairy Seer. Kind of explains its inclusion. So instead of taking 4, I'm actually going to be taking 8 here. I think we're both going to end the turn at 1 life. So they're going to get an extra Mist Syndicate Naga, and then they get to exile 2 cards from my library. So let's see which 2 cards they exile. Lord of Atlantis and Silvergill Adept. So this was pretty excellent from my point of view because they can't cast Silvergill Adept for its... Well, they can't cast it unless they do something extra, right? So it has an additional cost to cast it. You have to reveal a Merfolk card or pay an extra 3, and they don't have the extra 3 to pay. That's not part of its mana cost, as Fallen Shinobi specifies. It's an extra additional cost. So they can't pay either of those. They can't show a Merfolk from their hand since they don't play any Merfolk, and they can't pay an extra 3. So at least I'm pretty sure that's how that works. I know they obviously can't show the Merfolk, but since the 3 is a separate tax on top of the casting cost, I'm pretty sure that they just can't cast Silvergill Adept. Lord of Atlantis, on the other hand, is just excellent for me if the opponent casts it because it gives my creatures Island Walk, and that's what I've been looking for. Now, when the opponent went to exile my top 2 cards, I could have cycled Relic, and as it turned out, the top card was actually Lord of Atlantis, which would have won me the game. So by choosing not to activate the Relic before he milled me, I actually kind of whiffed. So it would be in the opponent's interest to not cast Lord of Atlantis for free. However, the opponent did cast Lord of Atlantis for free and commented on how embarrassed he was because he realized with it on the stack that other Merfolk get +1/+1. So a very interesting game 1. Pretty cool that it's showing off extra Modern Horizons cards. We got to see Force of Negation, and we got to see a bunch of cool ninjas. So fortunately... my creatures got Island Walk, and I was able to close out game 1, even without cracking this Relic of Progenitus. So let's go ahead and see how game 2 went. Hey guys, I'm back for game 2. The opponent's going to be on the play this game. Let's have a look at the opening hand. This is pretty nice. So it's got some interaction. They can pay a lot of money to get a ninja in before damage and then bounce it back to its hand with Echoing Truth. Similar with Dismember, just kill the creature before it gets value. Can't cast Silvergill yet, but we've got lands to get things going, Mutavault as an attacker, and of course Force of Negation to counter some removal. Let me show you guys what my sideboard strategy was for this matchup. Now, it's a new matchup, and I'm not really sure what the best strategy should be. Work in progress, let's say. So Force Spreading Seas clearly can come out. It's got some synergy with Thassa and with Master of Waves, but we already have access to Island Walk, so it's an easy substitution. I brought in, I guess I left in my couple of relics, and I think I only took out these 4 cards, which means that I would have brought in the 2 Echoing Truths and the 2 Dismembers, leaving it at that. In hindsight, and having thought more about ninjas and this matchup, I do have access to these Phyrexian Revokers, and ninjutsu is an activated ability. So it's quite possible that bringing in Phyrexian Revokers is correct in this matchup. Leave your thoughts down below on how good Phyrexian Revoker might be against ninjutsu. Now, the opponent does have removal spells, but if they're going to use removal against Phyrexian Revoker, that means that our Merfolk are going to survive. They're going to need to just deal with the Revoker before they can even get their game plan going. So Phyrexian Revoker seems like a pretty good choice. Other cards that I could potentially cut in this matchup, it seems grindy, so all of the grindy cards like Benthic Biomancer, Thassa, Master of Waves definitely want to stay in. Clearly, Merfolk Trickster is a slam dunk because he can actually, yeah, I guess he is, because he can just, even after blocks have been declared, if a ninja would get through, you can take away its abilities and then they won't get value from that ninja. So Trickster seems good. There's got to be something I can trim, though, to make room for some of these Phyrexian Revokers, and I'll give it some more thought. But for this particular game, I only had 2 Dismembers and 2 Echoing Truths replacing 4 Spreading Seas. So as I mentioned, the opponent's on the play. Prismatic Vista, yet another card for Modern Horizons. They get a snow-covered swamp, and they're going to Thoughtseize me. Now, I could choose to Force of Negation this, but I don't have too many cards to throw away, and I want to keep them. So the opponent just took the Dismember. Another Force of Negation. Now, we're going to want to draw a Merfolk so that we can play Silvergill Adept on time. But honestly, I'm never sad to see Force of Negation. This deck has a lot of creatures, but it also has a lot of non-creature spells. So, let's see what they've got. Here's a Fairy Seer. I guess I could open up the chat to show you guys what they do with the Scries, but sometimes on these replays, the chat doesn't open, so I guess I can't do that, actually. Okay, there's Thassa, and not a Merfolk, but definitely not an unwelcome draw. These games can go quite long, is my impression against the ninjas. It's kind of a grindy deck, and Thassa is at her best against grindy decks. So, can't do anything, just gotta pass the opponent. They crack their Catacombs, and looks like they're gonna get in with the Fairy Seer. So blocks have been declared or not declared, and it looks like they're going for the Naga here. Okay, and rather than let them start accumulating value, I'm going to bounce the Naga. Now, it's kind of extra value when you bounce a ninja because the opponent already had to bounce something to their hand. So I pretty much just reset the last 4 mana that the opponent invested to their board. Lord is excellent because now I can cast Silvergill Adept, but on this turn, I'm going to get Thassa down. She's going to let me scry every single turn and hopefully hit a lot of gas. Opponent plays Fairy Seer, let's say 1 top, 1 bottom. That's the average, and they're passing. So Thassa is going to let us scry. Master of Waves, we definitely want to keep that guy. Even though we don't have lands for it yet, it's going to be super easy to find a land with Thassa if it is in fact what we want to do. Silvergill is also going to give us another look at the top of our deck. And AEther Vial is pretty nice as well, because even if we don't draw more lands, we're going to be able to eventually get Master of Waves out. So can't block Fairy Seer. Of course, another good thing about Fairy Seer is that it's evasive. Ninjutsu requires creatures to be unblocked. So they're going for the Fallen Shinobi here, which is going to hit me and is going to exile 2 cards from the top of my library. So hoping for whiffs here. The opponent hit an island and a Dismember, so they get to play Dismember without having to pay any life because Fallen Shinobi specifies that they can cast it without paying for its mana cost, and Phyrexian mana is, in fact, part of its mana cost. So they get to kill my Silvergill Adept. I believe they already played a land, so they can't play that island out. So Fallen Shinobi getting in for 5 damage for 4 mana and killing one of my creatures. It's pretty solid value. But again, that Echoing Truth was pretty nice against them too. You always want to stack AEther Vial below Thassa, even though we're obviously ticking it up. Thassa's Scry can inform whether we want to tick it up or not. Echoing Truth also seems like a good top deck, so I think I left that where it was. So leaving Echoing Truth up, just to get this Shinobi off the board. If the opponent tries to cast something like Remand, we have Force for that. And we can also, one of the reasons to leave mana up like this is if we don't want to pitch a card for Force of Negation, we can just cast it for its mana cost. But odds are, since I want to cast Echoing Truth, that's not going to happen. Icefang Coatl is another Modern Horizons card. It's another evasive threat that just gets some value. Like Fairy Seer gets to scry, and this guy gets to draw a card. So he also has Death Touch, as long as they have a bunch of snow-covered lands. And they do. So they draw a card, and this is Inquisition. Now, I think I decide to just exile this. Exile 1 force to pay for the other force, because I wanted to bounce the Shinobi. Now, clearly, this guy can just get played again next turn, but it's really great tempo trade because they're going to have to pay 4 mana to get this guy back onto the battlefield. So you can see how Force of Negation, by paying its free cost, is super tempo positive. If I had to pay mana for it, I wouldn't be able to bounce the Shinobi. So we're going to go ahead and tick AEther Vial up. And at this point, maybe a land wouldn't be the worst thing. Let's see, I think we saw another Thassa, which I scried to the bottom. And yeah, Mutavault means we can just sort of go ham here, especially with the opponent tapped out, and play Master of Waves. So they should get to Shinobi us again, but we're getting really close to turning Thassa on. And let's see here. Opponent's going straight to attacks. They're probably going to get in with one of their flyers, and then we'll probably see the Shinobi again. Oh no, it's just a Naga. Interesting. All right, so he made a copy of that guy, did 3 damage to me, and they're leaving up 2. It very, very clearly represents an Assassin's Trophy. I guess they should probably do this during my upkeep at the very latest, not let me draw into another counterspell. Well, there's an island. Thassa doing her job, getting rid of it. They let me go to my draw step. Seems like a bit of a misstep. Unfortunately, 2 islands in a row on the top of the deck. I am going to activate both of my Mutavaults and crack in with those guys and maybe just a couple elementals. I do want to be able to block these Mist Syndicate Nagas. Okay, so they went for the Lord instead of the Master of Waves. It's an interesting decision. So it looked like they want to trade. Yeah, they traded with one of their Nagas and not with the Death Toucher. I guess they're prioritizing guaranteeing getting in another Ninja next turn, which I guess makes sense. So got a couple of Elementals through. Yeah, and I guess one of the Mutavaults, right? Opponent's down to 8. They're going to get in. Not with the Naga. Elemental's doing a good job. And now we're probably going to see that Fallen Shinobi again, I guess. There it is. We're not blocking it. Go down to 7. And again, we're going to roll the dice with the top of my library. Ugh, Master of Waves. Pretty gross since they're a blue deck and they've got some devotion. They get to play in the island that they exiled on the top of my deck. And then with the blue mana, they play a Fairy Seer. With more blue mana, they get to play another Fairy Seer. Remember that these Fairy Seers are just going to become extra elementals. So the opponent's going to get 5 elementals, making my Master of Waves look a little bit anemic. Now, remember, Thassa requires 5 devotion to be turned online. Another reason that they got rid of the Lord, apart from getting Island Walk dealt with, is that Thassa wants devotion, and Master of the Pearl Trident gives me more devotion. So I guess what I'm looking for here, the opponent's getting quite low on life. I need to hit them for some damage. I need either Island Walk. Island Walk, let's see, would it just close the game out? I could Vial, yes, I believe it would, because I could Vial in a Lord, activate Mutavault, swing for 7, and then make one of these elementals unblockable for 9. So Lord off the top is great. Let's see what else we can potentially hit. Mutavault, definitely not what we're looking for. The Master of Waves, I didn't think it was initially like, a great draw, but actually pretty decent. Thassa herself contributes some devotion, so just gotta slam this guy. And I believe I got 3 more tokens, which gives me 7 elementals, all as 3/2s. And next turn, we'll have access to mana to be able to attack with unblockable creatures. If the opponent just goes nuts this turn and just attacks with everything, I think we've got reasonable blocks lined up here. 5 of our elementals trade for their 5 elementals. We've got some life. We've got some life total to work with. Can deal with the bigger creatures. Can deal with the Shinobi and the Syndicate. They can get in for 2. This Master has no evasion, so they can't attack with him. So being able to scry away that Mutavault and hit the Master of Waves actually kept me in this game. So you can see the power of Thassa there. Scrying us to good cards. All right, so Creeping Tar Pit. Actually, I didn't factor that into my math just then. So if the opponent just taps everything right now, how would I line it up? I do block, block, block. So it's 1, 2. I have 7 blockers here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would take 4, 5, 6. 4, the evasive creatures, right? 4, 5, 6, and then I have to block 1, 2, 3, 8 creatures. I need to block 8 creatures. So it actually looks pretty rough for me, right? If we do that real quick one more time, I can't block 3 of these guys, and that's 6 damage. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And since I'm taking 6, I need to block all 8 because I can't even take 1 more point of damage beyond that. So I do have 8 blockers, but it gets into my Master of Waves even. They would be left with Fallen Shinobi and a Creeping Tar Pit. So looks like the opponent just went with leaving back blockers. But I have, let's see, they're at 8. I can make things unblockable with Thassa. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the best choice. Because I would line up blocks. They'd still have unblockable next turn. I'd be left with 1 Master of Waves with no elementals. I guess I could activate a Mutavault, swing for 5. Lord off the top would still potentially be game, because I could give... No, I don't think it would be, because the Lord would just make it 7. And then, I would have no other creatures to make unblockable. Lord wouldn't even turn Thassa on with only 1 Master of Waves, so... Island's getting scryed away. Thassa's still doing a good job. Actually, you know what? I scryed that to the top, at which point the opponent said good game, because all I need to do is get 3 creatures through here. They only have islands up, not representing any kind of removal. So I can give 3 of my elementals unblockable and get in for 9. So kind of strange play from the opponent at the end there. It's possible that they maybe play control decks in the past and are not really used to the kind of dynamics involved in huge alpha strikes. But if I were in their situation, I think I just would have attacked with everybody. Because again, they were getting in with 6 unblockable damage. Maybe I need to, actually, maybe it was 5 unblockable damage. Either way, the lowest power on any of their creatures is 2 beyond their evasive guys. So whether I'm taking 5 or 6, I was going down to 1. Oh no, wait, did this guy get buffed? I think he did, yeah. Creeping Tar Pit gets buffed by Master of Waves. That's why it was 4 power. So I had to block everything. 5, 6, 7, 8 creatures, and that would have left me just with 1 Master of Waves. And I mean, I had some decent draws, I guess, off the top of the deck, but the opponent, I would still be at 7. No, I would still be at 1 life because I took all of that evasive damage and would have just lost unless there was something that I could have top decked. So anyhow, I think I should have lost that game, but the opponent didn't Alpha Strike, and yeah, we won with evasive beats from Thassa. So I don't think we had it. They have 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 9. They could block our big guys and then just take like 4. So yeah, the evasion from Thassa was clutch in actually winning that game. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Pretty exciting first round in this Modern League. Getting to see a new Modern deck that Modern Horizons completely facilitated. I guess this is Sultai Ninjas. So please leave your thoughts down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon page and tune in for the next video where I will be back for round 2 of this Modern League. I'll see you guys there. Bye.